Hello. Things making sense is very important to me. And that is why I watched a 3-hour-long video on how to use Adobe Illustrator, and then I made this beautiful little printout design. And I made one for each of our formulas. Today, I'm going to be breaking down the tips and tricks for the Sneaky Balm Hydrating Skin Tint. Because who doesn't love a multimedia presentation? Who doesn't love visual aids? Think of this as a succinct makeup tech support manual, if you will, for how to get the most out of our products. Let's dive in. Point number 1, keep it simple. This is referring to how you prep your skin. It's very common nowadays to see recommendations that your skin prep before makeup be, toner, moisturizer, primer, toner, SPF. I'm sure there are influencers that works for and they're recommending those things sincerely. But overall, that trend, I believe, is the result of capitalism and cosmetic companies wanting to sell you more stuff to put on your face and people wanting to get more affiliate commissions for more products. I've also found that it is largely unhelpful to have so many layers of things on your face. If you're going to be applying your makeup for the daytime, you should be wearing SPF. Most SPF formulas are very rich and emollient just by nature, which means you don't need to use as rich of a moisturizer necessarily. What I do and what I've done for clients for over a decade is I do just a lightweight moisturizer and then top that off with SPF. And if somebody has oily skin, then I'll opt for maybe like a gel formula moisturizer. 95% of the time, a lightweight moisturizer followed by your SPF is all you need. The point of prepping for makeup is just to even out the level of moisture on your skin. You don't need to do a bunch of different jobs. It's really just that so that product can apply smoothly on top. Well, hello, it's Kiki from the future. While I was editing this, I realized that I had a little bit more to say. First of all, what a cutie. Look at that face. Second of all, if you are doing an evening look and therefore you do not need sunscreen, just go ahead and use a moisturizer that is a good fit for your skin type. So if you have drier skin, you want to use a more emollient moisturizer. If you have oilier skin, you want to use a more lightweight moisturizer. The overall point is that you want to limit the number of layers of stuff going under the makeup, and that because the makeup itself is a relatively emollient formula, even if you have drier skin, you don't need to compound layers of richness underneath. Number 2, you'll notice a theme here. Less is more. This is referring to the product itself. Sneaky Balm is a hydrating skin tint concentrate, which is a bunch of words I put together and made up into a name for a thing because I wanted to convey the fact that while this is made to be a tint and not a full coverage foundation, it actually has a really high percentage of pigment because I think products wear best when you only have to use a little bit. Again, the more stuff you put on your face, the more it's gonna move around. I wanted to put a lot of pigment so that you can just put a tiny amount of product to even things out in a natural way where your skin still shines through. If you want a full coverage product, I recommend using our Best Case Concealer or just any product you like that is designed to be worn full coverage. Next up, choose your fighter. You can apply Sneaky Balm with anything that you like, and some examples are brushes, damp sponges, dry sponges, or fingers. I am now going to demo this. I'm going to use one of my favorite brushes for applying this and talk through the different options. If you're going to use a brush, I recommend that it be very soft and very dense. If it has flexible bristles, like for powders, that's not going to work very well. I'm just tapping this into the Sneaky Balm, and I like to start in the center of my face and just tap the product in. Now, what are the pros and cons of these different tools? So I like brushes because I think they afford the most control over placement. Now, I like that because I don't necessarily think I need to put product on my entire face. I'll actually start with just this side of my face to sort of show where I see some redness, some discoloration under my eyes, around my nose. That's where I'm kind of tapping it in. And then I'm just kind of softening the edges everywhere else. And I think brushes give you the most control over placement because they come in so many different sizes and shapes. What brushes sometimes don't do as well as sponges is blend over top of texture. Now, some brushes still can. I think this brush is a really good one for going over texture, especially if you use a stippling motion. Kind of getting ahead of myself. Stipple versus sweep is one of the next instructions. But overall, if you have texture issues like acne or dry flaky skin, sponges tend to be the most forgiving and able to just blot over top. I think damp sponges are great for people with dry skin because adding the moisture to the sponge keeps the sponge from absorbing the oils in the product and the oils in your skin. It just gives more of a dewy finish and it doesn't rob your skin or the product of any of those oils that you might really want. Conversely, if you have oily skin, and I said this on the internet before and I did not know that it would cause an outrage, but you can actually use sponges dry. And I did not know that was like sacrilege for many people, but I do recommend it for people with oily skin that like to use a sponge because it does help to absorb some of that extra oil in your face and in the product. And last but not least, if you like to use your fingies, go right on ahead. One thing I want to stress is that you don't have to use anything. Use whatever you like. I just had a conversation yesterday with somebody who said, you know, they love our products and they always use their fingers. And I mentioned using a brush that I like. And they said, oh yeah, I've tried to use brushes. I need to figure it out and try it again. Like it didn't work as well for me as my fingers. And I was like, girl, let me save you some time. Don't. If your fingers work for you, then that's fine. You don't have to change your personal preference. What feels natural to you to use is completely fine. Stipple versus sweep. So as I already just kind of demoed, and I'll do on the other side as well, especially in areas where you have texture, really want to stipple. Even with a sponge, you want to just tap on top of it because as soon as you start swiping, you're kind of lifting those texture issues and getting the product all around it. So you want to stipple on top. And then the other times when you would want to stipple versus sweep is kind of how I did this, which is where I want a little more coverage, I'm tapping on, and then where I want less coverage, I'm just sweeping out. So you apply more pigment when you stipple versus when you sweep. Before I get to the last tip, I'm going to finish off the rest of my makeup. I'm going to put on a little bit of the Best Case concealer, and I'm going to put on a little bit of blush. And while I do that, I'm going to talk about the color choices. So if you ever need help choosing a color, you can reach out to our makeup tech support team, and a real human being will help color match you with our products. We get asked often why we don't have cool and warm indicators for the shades. I've talked about this before, and I will make a longer video dedicated just to this, but that's because I find that system to be more confusing than helpful. And unlike most foundations, Sneaky Balm shades were designed matched to actual human beings. I actually had human beings come in and I matched their color and I took a little sample and then I created that color. So all of our shades are human being colored. And unfortunately, overall in the industry, that's like quite novel. I wish it weren't, but I've found that it's not necessary to have as many different shades if the shades are really good and universal for each depth. So the N in all of our colors stands for neutral. And it's just because I find the cool, warm classifications to be more confusing than helpful and not very consistent from brand to brand. Without standardization, I don't see it as beneficial. And the feedback to our shades is overwhelmingly positive. So people seem to be happy, and it's pretty easy to get a color match because the colors were made to be human colored and not just like a computer generated color code that gets like spat out like paint at Home Depot. Make it last. I personally have pretty dry skin, and so I don't really ever need to set it with powder for it to last very well. However, if you have more oily skin or you like more of a matte finish or you're just having issues with things staying in place, you can always set with powder, which I know there's a lot of different things on the market now. I still find that just a good old-fashioned translucent powder is the most effective tool for keeping things in place, because very simply, what powder does is it absorbs oil, and what breaks things down is oil production throughout the day. Despite the fact that this formula is balmy, it does last incredibly well when set with powder, even on oilier skin types. So I'm just tapping this in through the center of my face. I'll do one side and then see if you can tell the difference on camera. No powder. Powder. A little bit will go a long way. And if you want things to really stay locked in, but you don't like a matte finish, that is the one time where I do find that setting sprays are pretty helpful, because you can just put a finishing or setting spray on top of the powder, and that will sort of undo the slight powdery look and give you that dewy finish again, but while keeping those longevity tools in place. We officially have makeup tech support now, so if you run into any issues with your application, you have questions, something's not working right, you can reach out to us at hello@saltnewyork.com, and a real person who is trained in our products will be able to give you individualized feedback and help kind of figure out what's going on. Feel free to comment any questions that you have, and I will see you next time for the next little makeup tech support video. Bye.